Good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Benjamin Sesko is slammed in the media again. Also, United slammed in relation to their treatment of Zirkzee by a current Dutch legend. He's an ex-player, but he's a current Dutch legend. We'll talk about that. Is there also a big risk around Ruben Amorim's clear-out that if this all goes wrong, these players are gone? I.e., I'm talking about Alvaro Fernandez Carreras at Real Madrid, currently looking like one of the best left-backs in the world. He was a Man United player. David De Gea, we were swap him out for Onana. So, look, we want to talk about that because there's more reports coming out from Europe today that Manu is getting closer to a move to Napoli, where Man United may well be willing to give an obligation to buy as well. Could that be a big mistake? We're also going to talk about Barcelona's concerns over Rashford and whether they can actually afford him. Maybe Man United should be pushing him elsewhere because he's having a good season. I've got the latest on Elliot Anderson too. I've got comments from Lemens. What could happen with Shay Lacey over the AFCON? Is Amorim preparing him for a place in the first team in December? And also a big glow up on a current midfielder from an ex-Man United legend. Lots to get into this morning. It's the start of the weekends. It's gone quite quick again, hasn't it? The weekend starts on Thursday on the United Stand because we have our live 8 o'clock preview for Spurs tonight, every Thursday at 8 o'clock. We've also got Amorim's press conference, which is on a Thursday again today at 1:30. My morning show. The weekend starts here. I hope you're all feeling very, very positive. As always, get your comments in. So let's start off here with, look, some of you might actually agree with this. I don't agree with this. I think it's very, very harsh. I just need to get it up on the screen for you. So effectively, there was a comment that came in from Troy Deeney yesterday about Sesko that some of you may have already seen. Now, it's sort of hot on the heels of a bit of criticism from our live chat on Saturday. Actually, there was a lot of people giving Sesko a lot of stick on the Forest watch along last Saturday. Obviously, Gary Neville said that the jury is still out, which I thought was a very tame assessment of the situation. You might not agree with this. So Troy Deeney said Sesko is too lightweight at Manchester United. He looks like a baby giraffe. I'm looking at him. He scored 2 goals before the international break in back-to-back games. And I was like, okay, you're going to have an international break and then come back full of confidence. I'm not talking about scoring because strikers go through spells where they don't score unless you're Erling Haaland. But for most normal people, you go through little breaks. But I don't see what he does. He's 6'4". Honestly, I piss stronger than him at times. He doesn't run over people. He's always on his heels. You've got Cunha and Mbeumo trying to play off him. If they need him to come short, he runs in behind. If they need him to run in behind, he comes short. He's never on the same wavelength as the rest of the team. So look, I'm not saying that, Troy Deeney never played for Manchester United. I'm sure a lot of you don't really think a lot of his opinions. My point is that this is how an opinion can snowball. And I've seen it with Gyökeres and I've seen it with Wirtz. And there is this confusion in the mainstream as they try to cross over into fan content, that they think that this is the sort of thing that, gives you growth and views, etc. And as somebody who's done this for 10 years, it isn't. That's not what it is. People think it is because they'll see a little clip of me on TikTok going mad. That's during a watch along. It's such a minuscule part of what we've bought. And when I see things and I say when we go viral, the pink boots, or harder than a wedding night dick, or burying is panicking like a cat trying to bury a poo on a marble floor. These are the things that go viral, but that's not what the United Stand is. That's not why people tune in 3 times a day. It's for the 99.9% of the conversation and debate where we're not doing that. But they look at it and go, oh, I've got to say something controversial. And I think with Sesko, what Gary Neville said, I didn't have a problem with. The jury is out on him. Let's see what he can do. As it is with Wirtz, as it is with Gyökeres, as it is with Frimpong, as it is with Lemens, as it is with any player that's come into the Premier League and has only been here for 3 months. But when I see things like, I don't see what he does, he doesn't track back, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, then that to me becomes like, he's a baby giraffe and this, that and the other. I think it's just way too soon. It's too soon. And I think that, we've got to be very, very careful here as to how we assess things, because I think it's just too early. And look, if Troy Deeney wants to say that, or you know, Tim Sherwood, or you know, Jamie Radnap, whatever, they're entitled to say what they want. But I don't think it helps a young player new to the system, who has got, you know, a lot to learn at Manchester United, and I feel like it doesn't help. Now, we're used to noise at Manchester United, but I look at Sesko and I answer it in this way. When I look at Sesko, I see a player that we haven't got used to delivering yet. You know, we can't deliver for Sesko. We're not putting crosses into the box. As Troy Deeney says, he's 6'5". Many of us have said it as well. He's occupying the defenders, as Jason Wilcox says and Rod Kelly said there. When I watch Manchester United, I don't look at Sesko and go, he looks like a baby giraffe. When Cunha and Mbeumo want him to lay it off, he's running in behind and vice versa. I don't see that. I see a player that is playing in a role that for the last 6 years has been a graveyard shift. And the brilliance of this community is that we're live every game, and we have been for years, and we talk about things, and there's a running theme. And the graveyard shift started 6 years ago. We were talking about Anthony Martial. Like, it's a graveyard shift to play up front for Manchester United. And Sesko is still in that. We haven't changed that. We're not used to playing to a striker. We're not putting crosses into the box. We're probably not putting the ball quick enough into certain areas. You saw Rasmus go to Napoli and score those 2 goals very, very quickly with the De Bruyne playing the ball quickly. You don't get that type of ball from Bruno. You don't get that type of ball from the flank. So this is a long-term project, and it's also a project that's going to take time. And I think anybody that's going, you know, he's a busted flush, or, you know, he's too lightweight for the Premier League, etc. I think that's misprofiling the player. I think there is, you know, good games and bad games, and you'd expect that. But look, he'll be fine in this fan base. If there's one thing about this fan base we're very good at, is protecting our players. But, you know, I think we've just got to be wary. I don't, you know, it's very rarely that we talk about Troy Deeney saying something. It's more about the movement towards Sesko. I sense there's a snowball effect where people are starting to, you know, see an opportunity to get at Man United. You know, we're unbeaten in 4 games. You can't have a pop at Amorim, so let's start having a go at the players. And I'm happy with Sesko, but I think we do need to be very realistic about, you know, what we're talking about here as well. From one ex-player to another, we have a conversation from well, I wanted to pose this question here as well. Let me just get into a couple of your comments before. Sesko is a baller, just give him service, says JK. He will come good, says Ross. John United says, honestly, the Sesko analysis is way over the top. We need to protect young, high potential players and actually give them a chance to succeed. Look, I have total faith in this fan base. There are morons in it, but there are morons in society. The vast majority of people know that there is a massive level of hypocrisy if you start taking a pop at Dorgu and Sesko and Lemens and any other young player, and then say we need to be patient and give our young players a place to nurture and develop. The reason we can't replicate the class of '92 is mainly because they were brilliant players. But also, it'd be very interesting to drop a young Beckham or a young Scholes into this United side. I don't know whether they go on to be as good. I don't know. Because the environment they came into, they had goats around them to look after them, you know, Cantonars, Roy Keanes. We don't have that now. So it's harder. It's harder for a Sesko. It's harder for a Menu. It's harder for a Dorgu because they don't have those players around them. And I think when you look at Manchester United, why would a Man United fan listen to somebody criticising Sesko or Dorgu or anybody else when in reality, we have to give them that opportunity, and I don't think we are by slagging them off. You know, I saw it. Look, I'm not having a pop at Troy Deeney or Gary Neville or anybody, because on our watch along on Saturday, I could see people going Benjamin Sesko and a lot worse. Part of that I laugh at because it's banter, even though I don't agree with it. But also, there is a massive amount of impatience in this fan base where you get the shiny new toy. It doesn't score 50 goals in the first 10 games and it's suddenly shit. But look, I do agree. I think we've got to, as Ahmed said, Sesko will show up, give him a few more months to form a connection with the attacking midfielders. Look, the thing about Sesko is that he has been misprofiled. I've got a lot to get through this morning, but I do want to say this. The one thing Red since 99 says Tesco does need to come out the team, Marky. Well, 8 o'clock show headline, you sort of get yourself ready for that later, because I'm not talking about it here. Does Amorim drop Sesko against Spurs? Because I think there's a big chance, but that's part of the 8 o'clock show, so we'll leave that there. But I think with regards to Sesko, the one thing that I would say is that he wasn't prolific at Leipzig. He wasn't prolific at Leipzig. That was one of the things that we all spoke about in the summer. He wasn't prolific at Leipzig. He was a handful at Leipzig, and he scored a few good goals at Leipzig, and he was a good player at Leipzig, but he wasn't prolific. So this, at Dortmund and Salzburg, Haaland was prolific. So this whole Sesko needs to be scoring every week. Well, he wasn't doing that at his previous club. He has potential, he has a brilliant mentality, and he's going to work really, really hard. But you know what? If Sesko succeeds at Manchester United, or if Sesko fails at Manchester United, I think I can visually give you my opinion on Sesko on one clip. And I mentioned it to you the other day. It was when we were going to sign him, and there was that clip of the cross coming in and how high he leaps. And if we're not going to put crosses into the box for a player that can leap that high, then why the fucking hell did we buy him? And I think it comes down to that. If we're not going to put crosses into the box, then why did we buy him? Because he's not prolific anyway. But what he is very good in the air. And if we're not going to put those crosses in, what was the bloody point? I look at Voltemeda at Newcastle, and look, Newcastle aren't tearing up trees. Good result in the Champions League last night, but in the Premier League, they're struggling. But how many goals has he scored with his head already? And he's not as good in the air as Sesko. So that to me is when I look at Sesko, I see everybody in the summer going, look at how big he can, how high he can jump. And then I'm like, we may as well have, Bilbo Baggins up front at the moment, because we're not actually utilising that. It has worked, the long ball at Chelsea, the flick onto Mbeumo, the sending off of Sanchez. It's not just crosses. You've got to play to his strengths. But I like Sesko, but I absolutely, like Dorgu, I think this is a work in progress. And if you're not ready for that, then it's going to be a problem. Also, look at Rasmus. It didn't work as a work in progress. Was a work in progress the right striker for Man United? Was a work in progress what Amorim wanted? You look at the profile of Gyökeres in his mid-20s, or Ollie Watkins, who's 29, or Osimhen, who's mid-20s. Yes, we approached Delap young. Yes, we approached Ekitike young. But, why was there such in the summer transfer window, why was there such a contrast? Some of the strikers we went for were experienced, and some of them were inexperienced. So who was driving what? Or did they not care? Were they not bothered about the age? I don't know. Talking about strikers, I found this quite interesting this morning. Let me bring this in, because from Troy Deeney to Ruud Gullit, I mean, look, who's the better player? But he was talking about Zirkzee, and I found this quite interesting because it sort of fits in with a couple of things as well. Well, this is what Teddy Sheringham said about Sesko as well. Former Man United forward Teddy Sheringham believes Arsenal's decision to sign Gyökeres was shrewder than the Reds' decision to buy Sesko. Here we go again. There was plenty of focus of the players, blah, blah, blah. He said Sesko and Gyökeres were both up for transfers coming into the Premier League, and there was a question of who is going to end up with which striker. I would say in this moment in time, Arsenal look like they've got the better centre forward. I'm not saying it's going to be the end result, but I definitely think Gyökeres has settled into Arsenal's way of playing easier than Sesko at United. Again, look, I'm not here to dismiss what is being said there by Teddy Sheringham, but what I would say is that it was only 2 weeks ago that we had, I don't think it was even 2 weeks ago. It might have been last Friday, where I think it was on Beth's show. Everyone was saying we dodged the bullet not getting Gyökeres and getting Sesko. And this is the thing that I find quite, tough, is that it's exhausting. Life's exhausting anyway. I think back to the 90s, and I'm not going to take you down history. But you get up in the morning, you don't have a phone, you get on the bus to work, you get to work, you have a chat, you do your work, you go out at lunchtime for a pint, you have a chat, you do some more work, then you go for a few pints afterwards, then you go home and you watch a film. Your communication is just at a slower pace. We live in such a fast-paced environment now. You're taking on information all the time. It's very hard to retain it. Your phone's buzzing. It is. That's the world we live in now. And I think that relates to football in the sense that, you know, last week it was like we've dodged a bullet getting Sesko over Gyökeres, and this week it's like Arsenal dodged a bullet getting Gyökeres over Sesko, and next week, you know, Sesko scores a hat-trick against Spurs, Gyökeres is injured, so we dodged the bullet again. The reality is, and Teddy Sheringham does say one thing, at the moment you might think Gyökeres is better than Sesko. I always did. Even when people were saying he looks crap, I always thought Gyökeres was the better deal, and I think Arsenal did do the better deal. But it doesn't mean in a year's time we won't have done the better deal, and I think that's where we have to remember here. We shouldn't be judging Sesko against Gyökeres because they're two very different profiles of player. One's young, potential, project, and the other has to deliver now. Gyökeres has to deliver now. Sesko doesn't have to deliver now. That's the big difference. Sesko's assist for Mbeumo was solid. Does it really matter who the goals come from, says Paul? No. I had this chat with Robbie last week on win, lose or draw. And I was actually defending Gyökeres. I said, I wouldn't give a shit if Gyökeres has 1 goal or 10. Where are Arsenal in the league and are they playing well? Obviously, I think Gyökeres will want to score more goals and maybe some Arsenal fans will want him to score more goals. But if I'm the team and Arteta, I'm like, we're winning games. I don't give a shit. So it's a very good point you make there, Paul. But anyway, look, this just to talk about Zirkzee very, very quickly. We've got a comment here from Ruud, who says that Manchester United's striker Joshua Zirkzee should return to Italy ASAP. He said, I think from my point of view, he should have stayed in Italy anyway because he was really doing well at Bologna, and I was hoping that he would go to Milan. I think as soon as he went to Manchester United, it was the wrong decision. A lot of players move to Man United, it's been the wrong decision, and whoever leaves them plays well everywhere around Europe. I just hope that there's a solution for Zirkzee. Go back to Italy on loan, play football. He's a good player, but at the moment it's difficult at Man United. They've had a bit of form in the last couple of weeks, and I hope Man United that they can continue that because a good Man United side is good for the Premier League as well. But Dutch legend, footballing legend there, Ruud Gullit, basically saying that Zirkzee made a mistake not going to Milan and coming to Manchester United. And look, I think that's a mistake that we can't hold against. We can't hold that mistake against Amorim because he didn't sign Zirkzee. And I don't know who. Look, I think Gullit's right. I think Zirkzee probably should have looked at that better. But I don't. The reason I bring Zirkzee in is because there's a story just come in that Sevilla are looking for him in January as well. There's not going to be a shortage of takers for Zirkzee, but this needs to happen. I was reluctant to sort of make this statement in the summer because there was a lot of positivity around Zirkzee. He'd been injured at the end of the season. He'd actually done well between January and the injury. We saw all the US tour stuff. He was there with the camera phone for Snapdragon, doing all the promotion. Looks like he was a really, valuable member of the squad. Everybody liked him. And I don't think that's changed. But I felt it was the wrong. Some people were saying we should be getting rid of Zirkzee in the summer, and you've been proven right. But I felt it was too early to do that because I felt the indication was that he was actually quite valued at the club and that, he seemed to be well liked. He seemed to be very, very happy. What we've seen is that Amorim doesn't value him at all. He doesn't value him at all. There's more than opportunity to use Zirkzee and he doesn't do it. So whether you like it at Man United, whether your teammates like you or not, he does need to get out. Probably more than Mainu. Mainu's 20, Mainu's from the youth. Zirkzee's not. So I think Zirkzee does need to get himself out as soon as possible. Whether it was a mistake to sign for Manchester United, I think circumstantially it's difficult. I don't feel it was the striker that United wanted. Anyway, I don't think Ten Hag particularly wanted him. I don't think the club particularly wanted him. I think they needed a striker and that was the best they could get. He's had a few injuries. We've had a change of manager. And yeah, I agree with Gullit on that one. I think he's got to get out ASAP for his own career. But what I would say is, and just to hit Mainu into this, is that story coming in from Sky Italy or Sky Germany or something like that this morning that a move to Napoli is getting closer and closer for Kobbie Mainu, and that Manchester United would also be looking to potentially put an obligation to buy into that. Now, that's probably going to cause a bit of a meltdown in the chat this morning. But, I mean, it doesn't necessarily surprise me. And obviously, we're still, 5-6 weeks away from this being that potentially happening. But once the internationals that breaks out of the way, we're going to be on a fast track to January. There's actually a lot of games going on between December and January, and we've got the AFCON coming as well. So all this is coming on the horizon, and it's all going to come to a head very, very quickly. I just wonder, if you're Manu, do you fall into the trap of, it's the AFCON, I might get a few minutes here, but when everyone's back, I'm back where I was? Or do you just go, no, I want to go? That's going to be a big, big key. Also, very, very importantly, is if conversations about an obligation to buy come in, that becomes, look, I'll be very, very clear here. There is no way back for Rashford or Rasmus at Manchester United, even if they both compete for the Ballon d'Or. They're not coming back to Man United, because when the club put an obligation to buy in there, that's basically them saying, we don't want them back. You're not part of our plans. And if they're not part of the plans, that means they're not part of the manager plans. So the minute Manu goes somewhere with an obligation to buy is the minute we understand for definite that the club, i.e. Amorim, do not want Manu to be part of it. So I would expect, if he does go on loan with an obligation to buy, that's basically it, unless Amorim gets the sack. Now, my problem with that is that, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree, is that I just don't feel Manu's ever really been given a chance by Amorim. And I don't think 20-minute cameos here and there or starting against Grimsby is a chance. I really don't, when you compare it to the chances that Bruno's been given, or Luke Shaw's been given, or Casemiro's been given, or Delot's been given. So I'd be quite, annoyed if we let Manu go with an obligation to buy, because that's basically a big indicator that, Amorim doesn't rate him. And then I sort of wander towards some of the mistakes Ten Hag made, who I backed. I backed Ten Hag. Even when the Ronaldo interview happened, I was like, I backed the manager and I backed the club over Ronaldo, because Ronaldo, that's Player FC, and I do like Ronaldo, but Man United comes first, and Ronaldo's basically doing a big, massive interview that's for himself. It's not for Manchester United. So, I will always back the club, and I will always try and back a manager. But where you've got to be very, very careful is that when you look at Ten Hag, however the Ronaldo situation was handled, and I don't really remember how the Ronaldo situation went. I don't know whether it's because Ronaldo wanted to go and the club decided to keep him, or because Ronaldo wanted to stay and the club tried to get rid of him. I can't remember what happened there. But the reality is Ronaldo got proved right, didn't he? The reality is that Ten Hag decided he wanted to get rid of De Gea, and a lot of you backed it. Oh, we need a ball-playing goalkeeper. And some of us were saying, this is the guy who's won the Golden Glove. This is the guy who knows this club. This is a guy that saved us literally loads of times. He knows the league. He knows the club. That's a very big thing to go, I'm going to get rid of it when we've just finished in the top four and won the Carabao Cup. It's a very, very big thing to get rid of. And some people are like, no. We need a ball-playing goalkeeper. So I'm not ridiculing Ten Hag for this, because actually it serves a point. Ten Hag didn't go and do decisions that everybody was like, absolutely don't do it. Absolutely don't do it. The Ronaldo thing, I remember at the time, some people were like, yeah, get rid of Ronaldo. And the De Gea thing, a lot of people were like, get rid of De Gea. And then obviously we've had Carreras, Alvaro Fernandez, whatever he gets called, letting him go. And now he's starting for Real Madrid as a left back at the top of a La Liga and in the Champions League. So you look at Ten Hag, and there's three big things there: Ronaldo, De Gea, Carreras, and there's probably other stuff as well. The club backed him on it, and they're huge mistakes. The trouble with backing a manager is I really do think you do need to back a manager, but also sometimes you can back a manager to the detriment of the club. So what I'm saying is, if we did remove Manu and then in a year's time Amorim's sacked and Manu's gone, you can't go back. And that's just my warning about it. Like, I just think that if Amorim wants to get rid of Manu and Amorim wants to get rid of this player and Amorim wants to get rid of that player, and you're convinced that you're going to have this manager for 5 years, it really won't matter, because you will go through the cycle of, distant memory. Look at Garnacho. Garnacho does not look like a risk at all, does it? Maybe he will do in 6 months, but at the moment it doesn't. But if you're going to make these big calls, you better be bloody damn sure that you've got the right guy, because we won't get him back. We won't be getting Manu back if he's not the right guy and we let him go. So yeah, I think that's one to certainly keep an eye on as well. Just on the midfield, Elliot Anderson, a few people talking about that. I've got so much to go through this morning. We've still got to talk about Lacey. Lemens has been speaking. There's a little bit around Rashford as well. But Elliot Anderson, lots of stuff yesterday. What's the situation with him? With regards to a January move, because I think a lot of people were hinting at that. Please do share the video, by the way, and smash a like on the video. Thanks for everybody last night with the camera wars. I'm hoping to sort it out for the, well, I better play sort it out for the preview later. I'm actually up in here, not because I need to be today. I could be down in my studio, but I'm actually up in here today because my camera broke last night. So I've just reverted to something that I'm used to. So with Elliot Anderson, there's a few stories going around about a January transfer and whether Man United would go for him in January. It feels like with Elliot Anderson at the moment, he is the #1 midfield target. So I think that's fair to understand. I would also say that, do Manchester United want Elliot Anderson in January? Manchester United would like Elliot Anderson in January last year. They certainly would have liked Elliot Anderson in the summer. Man United wanted him, well, Amorim and Wilcox wanted a midfielder in the summer. They didn't get it. So would Man United go for Elliot Anderson in January? I think you have to look at it like this. And we all know this, but sometimes you have to remind yourself. When you look at Manchester United and you look at desire of what's required, Manchester United don't necessarily go and say, we don't want a midfielder in January. Ruben Amorim, I don't want one in January. The market's not good. Wilcox, yeah, I don't want one in January either. What will happen is the manager and Wilcox will want Elliot Anderson or Belabor or Wharton. They'll want them in January. Absolutely. The reason it won't happen is because it can't happen, because United can't do that deal. So when we get told we're not signing anyone in January, it's not because we don't want to. Amorim would love a midfielder in January of the quality of an Elliot Anderson or an Adam Wharton, etc. But it's because it can't happen. And it can't happen because Nottingham Forest will say no. Elliot Anderson might say no. And the price will be too big. So I believe there are opportunities in January that we cannot dismiss. And there are things that can happen in January that can happen. But when it comes to the Belabors and the Whartons and the Andersons, no, it won't happen because we won't have the financial power to do it, and the selling clubs won't have the desire to do it. And I very much doubt the players will have the desire to do it. As I said to you yesterday, if you're Elliot Anderson, you're already starting for England. Why would you jeopardise that by going to Man United and potentially sitting on the bench and watching Casemiro and Bruno? So that will be something for the summer without a shadow of a doubt. Let me just go into some of your comments here because we're sort of half time through all the topics. Do you think we'll sign Ed Anderson? I think it will change, mate. I think at the start of the season, Belabor was the player that we wanted, and I think here we are in sort of early November, and it's Elliot Anderson. By the time we hit New Year, it could be Adam Wharton. I think it's quite. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of targets, and there's going to be a lot of people looking at those players. So it might be that the player that we want, we can't get. So we go for somebody else as well. So I think it will be, definitely moving targets. King Callum says the main new thing reminds me of when Ollie didn't want to play Fred and we all asked for a run of 5 games. Then you couldn't get Fred out of the team. Good point. Good point. How's it going? Says Melchi. I hope you're doing well. Nick P says we need players who are happy to sit on the bench. It's that simple this season. We can't just replace Zirkzee with someone hungry for games, says Nick P. No, but I think you do need to replace Zirkzee because Zirkzee, 1, was not an Amorim signing, and 2, he's been here for 18 months and can't get anywhere near the first team, and is obviously somebody that wants to play football. So he doesn't fit the profile. But you're right, Nick. We do need to bring in players that are comfortable being sat on the bench, and there will be profiles of players like that. It doesn't mean they're sat on the bench all the time, but know your role and be comfortable with it and be hungry with it. And I think we don't have the right collection of players at the moment for that because Amorim's not even built his first 11 yet. But you're right, we do need those sort of players. Paul Thompson says Sesko's assists for Mbeumo were solid. Does it really matter? Done that one, haven't I? He says Cunha, Mount, Ahmad and Sesko can hit 50 to 60 goals between them. It's about the greater good, Paul, exactly. MMA Takedown says not all ex-players need to be heard. These are guys have to pick on young players because they're too thick to figure out a better job after retiring, says MMA Takedown. Chip says, I don't get the Sesko criticism at all. It's like people just need something to complain about. His link-up play is great. Look at his first touch for the Mbeumo assist versus Brighton. This needs to stop. Also, a little dip into the world here. Fortunately, we're not built on this. We're built on 10 years of 50 people watching the first show, then 150 people, then 1,000, then hundreds of thousands. So we've built a community steadily over people liking the community and liking the shows. In the UK now, there's probably 1 or 2 new ex-player football podcasts every week. And having done a podcast with Will for 2 years, I didn't like the podcast world. It's a strange world. I much prefer just doing stuff on YouTube and video. The podcast world is weird. They're all chasing credible sort of sponsorship deals. And to do that, they need lots of listens. And there are so many of them. And they're all ex-player ones. So what do? It's like the producer says, can you come up with a soundbite that we can clip? Something controversial. Okay. Ideally about Man United, because Man United have got a huge fan base. And that's also what goes on. You can choose to ignore it, or you can choose to hit it face on. Well, we may as well hit it face on and say, look, you're not representing what Manchester United fans think. We're not thinking that. And you're also misprofiling a player that realistically is on a long list of many that have struggled to be a striker at Man United. Cavani struggled. Martial struggled. Rashford struggled. Højlund struggled. Sesko struggling. I mean, Ronaldo struggled by his standards. 18 goals in the Premier League in a United side is very, very good. But Ronaldo's the sort of guy who can hit 30. So I always think like Ronaldo, when he got those 18 goals, it was amazing. But we're talking about Ronaldo. Like Ronaldo could easily score 30, 40 goals in the Premier League for the right team. You know, Ronaldo, when he was at United, Man City were looking at him. If he'd gone to Man City, he'd have scored 30 goals. So even though Ronaldo did well and got 18, it wasn't like the service was great. It's always been a graveyard shift, and we've got to work on that. And it's not always the striker's fault. And I've said this for so many years, and so many of you understand it. Sesko will show up. Give him a few more months to form a connection with the midfielder, says Ahmed. We need another striker to create competition. United scouting 20-year-old Victor Roque or Cameroonian Carl Ayong, says Red Ed. I've got a bit about strikers. We'll talk about that in a moment. John, we've done that. I see Rashford at Bayern, says Keel Robinson. Well, basically, there's a story come out from Spain this morning about Marcus Rashford that, if I get the exact details of this, where was it? Marcus Rashford. That's about Hullet. Zirkzee. Here we go. Rashford. So this has come out from Spain last night that effectively the numbers don't add up for Barcelona, in the sense that despite his good performances, the economic situation at Barcelona once again poses a hurdle. The salary cap imposed by La Liga complicates any attempt at a permanent purchase. Rashford, valued at 29 million euros, 25 million pounds, is a figure currently unaffordable for a board that must prioritise sustainability and other strategic reinforcements. The player himself would, of course, be looking to stay, but 26 million pound buy option is, you know, very much not something that Barcelona can do at the moment. It goes on to say that he would be available to other clubs for around 40 million pounds. With PSG, Bayern and Juventus having shown interests. I you know what, I absolutely agree with that comment, that I think that Marcus Rashford, it's difficult. I mean, I'm sure Rashford wants to play for Barcelona. I'm sure he's very, very happy there. I'm sure he really likes it. It's an amazing football club. But ultimately, Barcelona do have the power. Now, Rashford has done well. It's not like he's flopping or not turning up or anything like that. He has done well. But ultimately, it will come down to Barcelona and whether they think it's financially worth it. You know, he's not Yamal, is he? He's not like their best player. And they might look at it and go, Marcus Rashford's 28. Do we want to really, push the envelope financially to bring him in? Now, they might do, they might not. What I'm saying is, if it doesn't happen, those around Rashford basically need to be saying, look, if it doesn't happen, we've had a good year. Where do we go next to sort of build upon this? Because Man United doesn't have a place for you. And I agree. I think Bayern Munich, when you look at the way Bayern Munich play, I think he'd work very, very well in a Bayern Munich side. PSG potentially as well. So look, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for Manchester United. Barcelona, we've mentioned this a few times. It's no reflection on the player, and it's no reflection on Barcelona or us. Financially, they're in trouble, and it will just come down to whether they financially want to load themselves onto a Rashford deal or go, thank you very much, but it's just not quite right for us. They might go for something younger or whatever. So it's just a watching brief. But as things are going at the moment, I think some people read that yesterday as quite a negative thing. I don't. I think he's actually done well, and I think he'll continue to do well because it's a World Cup year and he's on loan, etc., and he's motivated. And at the end of that year, he'd be stupid to go, I'm coming back to Man United to sit on the bench. So I would imagine that there would be opportunities. But look, Barcelona is not necessarily the best fit for Manchester United because they don't have a lot of money. But economically, I think this will be one to keep an eye on. The reason is we're so crap last season, we didn't get Europe. If we had Europe and stayed in the cup, we could rotate and keep everyone happy, says Dazo. Yeah, I completely agree around that one. Let me talk to you a couple of things here about current players then. So Shay Lacey, I've noticed this for a couple of days now, and I thought it was something to bring into the show. He's a young player that we've mentioned quite a lot on the United Stand over the years. He's currently only 18 years of age. There's been a few stories recently that Ruben Amorim is preparing him for first team football at Manchester United that could be coming imminently. There's been talk of the AFCON. Now, Lacey, I would describe, in my limited knowledge of watching the youth team, because I don't watch it that much, I would say he's more of a 10. He'd be more of a Cunha and Burmo position than anywhere else. Certainly wouldn't see him as a midfield 2 or a striker or one of the wing backs, but somebody that could play in the number 10 position. Certainly, I think that's where Lacey's future would be. Now, he's had a few problems with injuries. Hopefully he's over those. He has got the potential, and he is a name that many of you will know, to, graduate into the first team surroundings. Whether that will happen would be very interesting. I think if we were to run a poll and I was to say, would you rather see Lacey playing in the number 10 position or Zirkzee? I think we know which way that would go. So maybe, I think Amorim doesn't have to do this, but will do this at some point. Every Man United manager gets a feather in their cap by promoting their own young player. We've seen it with Ollie. We've seen it with Ten Hag. I think even Rangnick did it, didn't he? So there is always that desire as a Manchester United manager to, say, this is my player. I promoted them. I gave them an opportunity, and Amorim's not really done that yet. So if it's to be Lacey and it's to be in the AFCON, that's quite interesting. There are some games in December that people are looking at and going, hey, you know what? We don't normally put ourselves into this position, but we might be in a position here in January where we could give certain people some minutes, whether that be Lacey or Manu, Zirkzee, etc. But yeah, November's difficult. Spurs away, Everton at home, Palace away. But then you look at December, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Wolves at home. And then January, Leeds away, Burnley away, all by, look, we play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We play 8 games between Thursday, the 4th of December and Wednesday, the 7th of January. So we've got 8 games in a very short period of time. And in none of those, it's not just that we're going to miss out on Ahmad and Mazraoui and Mbeumo in the AFCON. It's also the volume of games we've got to play. We've got to play 8 games in the space of 5 weeks, and we won't have any of those players for that time, really. So 8 games, effectively, when you think about it, that's just under. What 8 games? It's just shy of a quarter of the season. It's mad when you think of it like that, isn't it? 8, 16, Yeah, I mean, it's not quite that. Maybe a fifth, but it's a large proportion of the season. So it'd be interesting if he is going to throw Lacey into it. I hope so. I mean, as I say, I don't think Amorim will be judged exclusively on whether he brings in any young players, but Lacey would be an interesting player to bring in. Also, Le Mans has been speaking about his issues at Manchester United and why he didn't go straight into the team. This is from Man Utd France. So obviously, I think when we bought Le Mans, we really wanted him to see him making his debut straight away, and it didn't happen straight away. This is what he's had to say. There was never a strict plan on when I was going to play. I was always told that the best goalkeeper would play. At the beginning, I did have a bit of trouble adapting to training. The manager noticed it and gave me some time to adjust. The first match I played was the ideal opportunity for me. And from there, everything went well. I couldn't have imagined a better start. So effectively, that sort of flies in the wind of, he should have. What was the first game he could have played? So we played. If we signed him on transfer deadline day and we came back from the first international break, it was Man City, wasn't it? Was it Man City? I feel like it was Man City. Man City, Brentford. And then he started against Sunderland, didn't he? I think that would be right. So yeah, I think that little bit of time was probably fair at the end of the day. So, but look, I don't, I know Wilcox mentioned it yesterday. I don't look at it like that. I don't look at it. I look at it like Man United messed up with the goalkeeping situation. That's nothing to do with Amorim or Le Mans or Binder. We messed up with the goalkeeping situation. And I don't think it's ever going to be anything that gets scrutinised, and I don't think it needs to be. But why did we start the season without a goalkeeper? Why did we even step into this season where Binder was in goal against Arsenal and Anana was starting against Grimsby? Something went wrong. And I don't know whether it was financial. I don't know whether we were going to get a midfielder and we didn't have enough money for a goalkeeper. A lot of people in and around the club sort of hint at that the reason we weren't going to buy a goalkeeper is because we were allocating funds elsewhere. We didn't end up with a midfielder. So did that free up some money to go and get a goalkeeper? Maybe that was it. But we certainly started the season without a goalkeeper, and I don't really understand why that was. And I think whatever the reason was that we delayed it, Le Mans could have been a Man United goalkeeper in June. He could have had perfect player to have on the US tour, ready to go for the start of the season. We've ended up in not too bad a situation, but yeah, we should have got him in. We should have got him in a bit earlier, I think. Yeah, certainly. Also, I saw something from Endrick's agents saying that there's absolutely no chance that he will be joining Manchester United in the January transfer window. And let me just summarise some of the other stuff that's coming in here. This is quite interesting. United is said to be one of several Premier League clubs that have watched Yan Diamonde multiple times. He's on the list of many top European clubs and doing very, very well at Leipzig at the moment. A few of you mentioned him last night. So, this was the thing from Romano. Rumours on Endrick and Man United, Endrick and Aston Villa, zero chance. Zero because Endrick wants to play. Endrick doesn't want to compete. Obviously, he would be ready to compete as he's doing at Real Madrid, but he wants to play. He wants to have 6 months with the opportunity to play and show his skills to develop. So, I suppose that makes sense, doesn't it, really? His frustration is sitting on Real Madrid's bench. Why would he want to go and sit on Aston Villa's bench or Manchester United's bench? He's going to find somewhere that he can go. And he's Victor Roque, who's different to Endrick. He's obviously former Barcelona player, currently at Palmeiras. This is what he's had to say. Today, we're receiving a barrage of calls from European clubs, mainly Premier League and Italian. They're calling to ask about the price, but we're in the middle of the season. We already had an offer from the Arab world of 35 million euros, which wasn't of interest. And now we're going to get a proposal in the region of 50 million euros from the Premier League. What about Manchester United? If a good offer comes along from it for everyone and they understand that he has to leave, he's open to listening, but he's very happy at Palmeiras. So that's Victor Roque, who, look, he was going to be the next big thing at Barcelona and found himself back in Portugal. I I think the striker situation for Man United is really interesting, like where we will go next. You know, it's sort of we've gone full circle in the sense that we were talking about Sesko at the start. I don't want another striker because I don't rate Sesko. I want another striker because we need another striker. I mean, we just like, I think we've become so accustomed and experienced in these types of conversations. It's not anti-Sesko, it's reality. Like, how many times have we been in this position over the last few years where key players get injured and you're sort of like, why have we put ourselves in this position? For example, if Sesko breaks his leg and he's out for 6 weeks, who is playing up front? Who is playing up front? We're going to play a false nine, aren't we? And that is not acceptable for a football club of Manchester United's stature. So, yeah, I think that's something that we're going to have to figure out. I don't think Sesko is that guy. Obi's nowhere near the first team at the moment, so I think we've got to look at that. But who I don't know. Default 66 says, you love talking about Sesko's potential, but when Haaland was 22, he had 49 goals in 57 games. Why didn't you go for Osman? I literally spoke about this before. Default 66, and I know some people really struggle with this, but I don't actually see the relevance of what Haaland was doing at 22 and what Sesko's doing here. I spoke about it at the start. Like I said, Sesko was never prolific at Leipzig and Haaland was. So why are we comparing Sesko to Haaland? Because they're human beings and they've got a head. Like, what's the relevance between Sesko and Haaland? There isn't one. They're different profiles of player. Like, Sesko wasn't scoring the goals that Haaland was. Haaland was seen as potentially being the world's best striker when he was at Dortmund. I don't think Sesko was. We haven't bought Haaland, so we shouldn't be holding him up to that. I don't know that Sesko's ever going to be that prolific anyway. Maybe he's not going to be that type of striker. Maybe he's a 15 goal a season striker who brings other people into play. I don't know. But you can't compare him to Haaland. I like this morning show. It's very chill, says Melch. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. Seth says, since we're talking about Barcelona, we are dealing the same situation. Barcelona bought so many hype players and ultimately got more debt. Now it's United's. Thank you, Seth. Hope you're doing well this morning. Riley says, hi, Mark. Hope you're well. Do you think we should go for a new right back in January as Delo hasn't performed well at all? No, because that's Ahmad's position, isn't it? And then you've got Mazraoui as well. So I don't think we need the right. I don't think we will look at anybody in that position until at least the summer anyway. But I don't think that's going to be a priority. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Just a few more comments I want to get into here. Welbeck will be a good striker for you guys, says Kieran. I think he's too old for what we'd go for. Cosmo says, give Sesko time, he will deliver the goals. And I'd take 15 goals a week, says Black Moustache. And as fans, we can see what and when a player needs to be sold, but it seems no one at United knows when to do it. Selling players at the right time is crucial to keeping a strong squad. We don't strengthen, we weaken, says Music Only. I think this is something that we've failed to do for many years. You know, I look at Man City under Pep and the players that he's moved on, whether it's Raheem Sterling, whether it's Kevin De Bruyne, whether it's Gundogan, whether it's Zinchenko. There is just a long list of players that they've moved on that go for good money and still keep playing at the high level. But obviously Pep has noticed that they're not at the level they need to be, so he moves them on. United are terrible at this. Oh, Harry, do you want another contract? Oh, Bruno, do you want another contract? Casemiro, we might give you a new contract. There's just no way at Man City Pep Guardiola would be keeping these players. He'd be moving them on and building again. And it's something that United have become increasingly bad at. And the worst thing is, if you were going to keep a proven leader and winner on, you'd keep Kevin De Bruyne on, but Pep moves him on. We keep proven failures on when it comes to winning things at the highest level. So I do agree with you. We're very, very bad at moving people on at the right time. Sir Alex Ferguson was brilliant at it, by the way. Sir Alex Ferguson would do it and you'd go, what are you doing? Why? Jaap Stam, still at the very top of his game. David Beckham, Ruud van Nistelrooy, even Roy Keane. I know he's coming towards the end, but I still think he had a lot to offer. But he was brilliant at just going, now is the time to do it. And As I've said before, it's so sad that we need to look at Arsenal, Liverpool and Man City now for advice and a blueprint when actually they looked at us. The way we used to run ourselves under Sir Alex was the way to run a football club. You know, recruitment, moving players on, ruthlessness, how we played on the pitch, standards, consistency, you know, everything was there. And the Glazers allowed it to be torn down. Okay, rest of the day for you. We've got Amorim's press conference coming in at about 1:30, so make sure you're live for that. We'll see what happens with that. And then 8 o'clock live preview. It's one of my favourite shows of the week. Live preview at 8 o'clock, how we think we're going to line up, talking about Spurs, talking about whether Sesko is going to get dropped or not. I suppose that will be a factor as well. Andy, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone for watching. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you on the next one. Take care.